Do you guys know how hard it is to record something on a Mercury retrograde? Oh my gosh, this has been so difficult to get together. Anyway, welcome to episode 4 of the Delineation. My name is Cam White. I'm really excited you guys could be here today. We have quite a bit to talk about. It's a topic that I've really been thinking a lot about since the pandemic hit last year. And I'm really excited to go over it. But before we begin, I just want to thank all of my lovely patrons and you guys should also thank them too for putting on this podcast. This isn't my updated graphic. We have some more producers for the show. I haven't updated my graphic yet. They will be on the next one. But anyway, shout out to my patrons for putting this on, and you guys should thank them too in the comments. And if you guys want to get episodes of the Delineation and all of my other horoscopes, if you want them to be commercial free and you want to get early access to it, go over to my Patreon, become a patron. That would be super awesome. Anyway, so pretty much what I really want to talk about today is prediction in general, but not necessarily just making predictions, but I really kind of want to talk about our role in the moment in what we do right now in terms of how we understand the future. So I know that's kind of a lot. So let me kind of open it up with this. I've talked a little bit about this before. I believe on a couple of horoscopes, maybe with some friends too. But when back in 2019, a lot of astrologers, we all knew that the Saturn-Pluto thing was going to be crazy, and the Christmas eclipse that happened right before it, that was at the same time that I believe Trump killed the Iranian military leader, which a lot of people thought that's it, that's World War III right there. But we looked at that Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and it was kind of I think the way I really looked at a lot of predictions too, a lot of people, the way that they wrote about it was very what's it going to be on that day? Is it going to be a moment on that moment? What's going to happen? Versus what you kind of see with that Saturn-Pluto conjunction is it wasn't necessarily that moment, that day. You could look back and yeah, that was the moment it all kind of changed, but it wasn't any kind of specific event that kind of happened. When you kind of look at it, what's just interesting about the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is its repercussions are so much longer lasting, right? COVID wasn't a thing that was just there and gone. It wasn't it was the same thing with 9/11. When you look at the Saturn-Pluto opposition and Pluto in Sagittarius and Gemini, that put up the surveillance state, and that really ushered in a whole new era. What's really interesting about the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is just how much, and there was, and don't get me wrong, I'm not, of course, scouring the earth for every single person's opinion on what they said about the Saturn-Pluto thing, and maybe there was a lot of people that were after this it's going to be a lot different, but I didn't see a lot of people really explain, putting in the light of what this kind of means moving forward with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, right? What it's gonna kind of look like afterwards. What did that, something that I really want to talk about is what did that moment mean in hindsight, right? I hate to say the whole hindsight's 2020, but we kind of look at, astrologers, it's super weird. Well, I don't even want to just say astrologers, I feel like humans in general, we look at the future it's this oh, we're gonna predict a certain moment, right? Versus we're not really understanding the context of what that moment means by that point. And I think that's kind of really important to understand. And I think that's something that is really subtle that we can kind of lose in looking at the future, but I think is really important if we can kind of take a step back. And I think we could really gain a lot out of our predictions and gain more out of astrology by, comparing. Really one way that I really like to look at astrology, and this is, a common theme, is we, with astrology, our job is to really it's about understanding the past, learning about the past to, understand the present to predict the future, or I forgot how the exact line of, words go. But we kind of know we understand and we can predict things in the future by looking to by understanding the present moment and looking to the past. And it's so funny, just sometimes we don't always connect all of the dots. And I feel like that, and I don't think that's necessarily like a problem. I feel like astrology is just, there's so much going on with astrology. Number one, I think there's so much, to it. There's so much to involve yourself with it that it's, easy to get kind of lost in the world of it. But I also just think, it would make a lot more sense to understand something from the context of where you're coming from. And so, okay, so not only was it the Saturn-Pluto thing that really, of course, got me thinking about it, which was, wow, thinking about it a year later, we're still dealing with the repercussions of that. We're still, what's crazy is we're going to continue dealing with the repercussions of what that signified at that moment. And that's just so wild to think about. And this isn't even like, with 9/11, yeah, that changed our lives, but it didn't impact our day-to-day lives. It didn't impact our relationships the way that COVID has. So I just think that's what an impactful thing. You know what I mean? I don't know how many people predicted how impactful I think to everybody's life it would be. I've seen some other astrologers predict pandemics. They're like, Ebola was a big pandemic. Same thing with like the swine flu virus, but it wasn't as crazy as and effective as this one. So but besides that, coming up and being making me kind of think about this, the other thing has been this book that I've talked a lot about. I've referred this book to a lot of people. I kind of refer to this author all the time in like my horoscopes, but his name's Cal Newport, and this book, what's it called? So Good They Can't Ignore You. And in this book, on page 133, I should have brought the book over here, but it's a Mercury retrograde, so, I'm all over the place. But on page 133, I wrote this down. He talks about the timing in life, and how important it is to like understand the timing of life. And like, I want to echo that and shout that out from the mountaintops. If you haven't read this book, I might have already said this before, but I'll say it again because it's so worth saying. And I think it's some of the best advice you can really get in this day and age. But this whole book, So Good They Can't Ignore You, is like pretty much instead of trying to do something you have no experience in, you have no idea what you're doing, and taking a giant leap of faith with, kind of nothing supporting you, like invest in what you're already good at, become really good at it, get yourself, like if you want to, the idea, what he kind of talks about is too many people are trying to like live their dreams, and that living your dreams is really, really bad advice, and that you should do what you're good at and what you can profit off of, and that what you can support yourself with. But he talks about on page 133, when you want to take a big leap in life, the timing is of the most important, factor. And he uses this example, this girl who, she was like, I think the story was like she was unhappy with her career and she wanted to open a yoga studio. She had, of course, no idea. She didn't know shit about yoga. She didn't know anything about business. And so she ended up taking like a ton of money out to invest in this business to, because she got really inspired to just like be her own boss, do her own thing. And she took out all these big business loans and she failed. She like lost everything. And it's just like, I hate to laugh at it, but it's kind of like, well, yeah, like that, when you're not, it's not that when you're not good at something, you can't do it. It's that, you got to really think about some things all the way through. And I know a lot of people, and we're going to come right back to her story. But a reason why I'm kind of bringing this up and I'm passionate about it is like a lot of people get into astrology, and a lot of people ask me this question. They go, like, how do I utilize my chart? And, what is my purpose? And, what should I do for work? And it's like, those are answers that we all ask wanting, a label for. We just want an easy answer, but we know that there is no simple answer to that. But we live in this. It's so weird when people like ask like, oh, like, what should I do? And it's just like, well, that, like, name one person who has had one job their whole life. Like, that's super rare. Name one person that has, started in one career and stayed in that career, or, doesn't do multiple different things. What a weird question that we force ourselves to ask. And it's super important in this day and age where all of our jobs are going to be, taken over by robots and whatnot. Like, we really got to start becoming much more nuanced and complex about the idea of purpose and the idea of living and the idea of, like, what do you do? What do you contribute? How do you work? How do you put in effort and labor into the world? And I get this question a lot. How do I utilize my chart? What is my purpose? And the reason I'm kind of bringing this up with this girl who took this yoga studio leap of faith is that I often also see people do similar things where they're like, I'm just going to do this thing that sounds good right now. That sounds like an escape. That sounds like, I can attach a purpose to it. I can attach all of these emotions to it and just do it because it'll make me feel good. And don't get me wrong. There is such an important role with that. Like, as you're talking to a Sag rising Leo sun, like, I got too much fire and air. Like, I'm very like, yeah, fuck it. Like, just jump ship. I'm totally, I think that's some of the best advice you could really do is, jump ship when you need to. But there's so many people I see that, like, will put in all of this effort, put in all of this labor, and then, like, completely ditch it for something else. And they're not necessarily 100% certain on that. And my question is, is that worth it in this day and age? You know what I mean? When you ask yourself, like, a lot of people, like, the thing is, when you're in this world of the astrology world, the BetterHelp, world, or the personal development world, whatever you want to call this sphere, you run into a lot of this type of bullshit, really. And, I'm not going to be the type of person that says, don't live your dreams. I'm someone who kind of took that into their own hands, and I feel like I've really benefited from it. I think you should do what your dreams are, but I think you should at least, like, have a plan with it. And I'm talking about this. The reason I'm bringing this up is this take a leap stuff, taking the leap of faith, and the timing. The timing is so important. We are astrologers. Like, we have to understand the timing. Now, this isn't about understanding the timing as in, like, oh, I'm doing all of my calculations with all of my Time Lords and Fajaria, and I'm doing the solar returns and with my, don't get me wrong, you should do that. However, though, like, so something I get all the time with a lot of my client readings, something that all we're really doing as astrologers is this is the beauty of astrology, is like, if you're coming to me as a client, you don't have to tell me anything. Like, that intake form that I have, like, on my website to, like, and for most astrologers, like, truly astrologers could do readings without you giving them any information, and they're going to be able to tell you you could talk to an astrologer as if they've been talking to you, as if they've already known your experience, because, at the level of which they can look at your chart, right? There's the sense of, mostly what astrologers are doing, we're just confirming your intuition. We're just confirming what you already know by you not even saying anything, by just looking at the chart. Like, I've never gotten a reading where someone's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that to happen. And I'm like, like, most people are like, yeah, like, I kind of felt like things were going to turn that way. I kind of felt like, things are going this way. I kind of felt like it was going to be like this. And that's what makes astrology, in my opinion, more therapeutic than anything, is it validates something that you haven't even said out loud. Who the fuck does that besides, like, a psychic? Which, don't get me wrong, I've had good and bad psychics. Like, so that's a 50-50 chance, but we're just confirming intuition. That's all we're doing. We're just letting you know where you're right and where maybe you need to think twice. And I think so keep that in mind, right? If we are simply confirming what you already know, that's a very powerful realization, because that means that that internal intuitive voice that narrates your life, that internal monologue, or that what we could, sometimes it's not always that voice, because there's a couple of them sometimes, but that gut feeling, that heart, that brain feeling, that we all have, that means that whatever that is, that somehow has some type of connection with astrology. Somehow we're already the thing is with astrology is you don't have to believe in it. It works. This is why we can read celebrity charts and make predictions about them. You know what I mean? We can be oh, this is what their chart, they got this going on. We can say this about it. That system of intuition is really shown so well through astrology, and we can find where we can confirm our intuition, where we can deny our intuition, which I think is a kind of crazy when you kind of think about it, because really it comes, there's certain things in life that will confirm or deny your intuition, right? But this tool kind of facilitates something before, it's kind of like a pre-test of confirming if you were right or wrong. And that's so important when it comes to the timing in life and taking leaps of faith, because I'm bringing this up because it's so easy for one in this world to get really confused with information. I don't have to tell you what's going on in the world and the Mercury Gemini squaring Neptune to say that most people are very confused at this time, and for a lot of good reasons, for most things too. Not just, life is a very confusing, situation at this present day moment. It's really easy to have outside voices overcome your inner narrative. Something I've been thinking about, I just tweeted about this too not that long ago, is Saturn in Aquarius being this whole understanding where you separate your voice versus the crowd voice, for where is your thought versus group think. I have Sun and Mercury in Leo, and Saturn's been going opposite my Sun and Mercury, so I'm very I know who I am. I'm very individualizing myself. But there's a lot of this sense of there's a lot of confusion nowadays, and it's really easy to attach and kind of create a pillar with a lot of group think that, sometimes is good, sometimes is bad, but what that can really do is dilute, your own inner intuition, your own inner, being able to listen to yourself. How many, this is something that I've really realized, and, maybe some of you guys have realized too throughout the years, is how many things have been you had an opinion, you had a thought about something, and then you thought that was, at that moment, you weren't even paying attention, but you thought that was your idea. That's how you thought. But then something challenges that thought, and then you go, why the fuck did I ever think that? That wasn't even my thought. That wasn't especially people who have been in really manipulative relationships or been abused, know the whole wow, what the fuck? That wasn't even me thinking that stuff. That was straight up whatever, just being human in society, I guess, with a lot of stuff. But I'm bringing this up because it's so easy to ignore that gut feeling, to ignore where your intuition says. And it's super easy. I mean, this is kind of why I'm also talking about this specifically, is this is a Mercury retrograde. We're here to rethink. We're here to review. And, sometimes, I made a tweet about this too. Something I'm kind of really learning with this Mercury retrograde squaring Neptune is sometimes it really is that simple. Sometimes, it's so easy, how we can just overthink things. And, you could talk about anything forever, really. And you can get it. And once you start talking about it long enough, it can get really confusing. But sometimes it really is that simple. Sometimes you don't need to overthink things. Something else I've been really thinking about is just I've been wanting to turn my brain off. I would love to just be no more thoughts, just be a gym bro or something, and not care about stuff. But I think with that overall noise that we have, I think with social media too, it's so easy to be influenced just by anything and everybody. But I would ask, ask yourself, what are your own thoughts? What are you actually thinking of? Where is your stance on things, and not just are you relating to what everyone else has to say? But I also bring this up because this is what's going to help you actually listen to your intuition, is when you're actually trusting that gut feeling time after time after time again, I get clients who go, oh, I felt this certain way, but I didn't listen to my intuition. I didn't listen to my gut. I did whatever the fuck else, I rationalized in my head, which is super easy to do. You could rationalize anything. And I did this, and then it was like the wrong decision. I should have trusted my gut, should have trusted my intuition. And it's like, yeah. And I know it's hard. Like none of this, it's super funny. Like when people are like, complain about personal development or changing their life. I'm like, dude, like life is literally misery and suffering. Like all of this stuff is hard. It's really up to you to like, want to take it into your hands and do it. And what I'm trying to say here is a lot of this mental stuff of like really getting clear in your own voice, getting really clear with, your own intuition and gut. And that looks different for everybody. I know people that like won't make a decision unless they see a sign from something that's like super important, or, they flip a coin or something. Like there's something that you've got to tap into. And what we're going to call, and what this is, divination. What this is essentially magic. For some people, there's a lot of Christian people, like they're tapping into God. Tapping into, whatever that higher power is. But you really got to be clear on what that voice is for you. Because when we talk about the timing of life, for one, we're talking about the timing of life, everything happens for, a reason. And something I've really been, I'm so young. I'm 24. I'm almost 25. I know I tweeted about this the other day, and apparently everyone thought I was way older. I don't know why this is news. I talk about how young I am all the time. Something that I've really learned in this short amount of time that I've been around is how much I'm like, wow, that really did happen for a reason. Like if that didn't happen, even if it was like it all leads me up to this moment, right? Here I am, right? You have to be grateful for your past experiences, because guess what? They got you to where you are right now, whether that's good or bad. You could learn from those lessons. You can learn from those mistakes. I really try to. You don't have to. No one's pointing a gun to your head to learn anything. But it will make life a little bit better to enjoy. But you've got to trust that personal instinct. Like for me, what's been really difficult for me, and like I've had some people ask, like, what, like, how do you use astrology? Like how do you, like, do you do anything with it, like personal development stuff? And like for me, I've had a very chaotic and crazy life, for the small amount, and I've had a lot of experiences for the small time I've been around. But there was a big thing for me over these past years. I've been like I've moved from state to state, here to there, like most people do in their 20s or whatever. And there's been this sense of like, what am I doing? And it's so crazy though. That whole time there was a lot of decisions I made that I honestly, I look back at some of those decisions and I go, holy fuck, like I can't believe I did that. But I look at some of the decisions I made that at that moment, I didn't understand why I was making that decision. I didn't understand why I was choosing to do that, but I felt like I had to. I'm a Leo, and this is of course just my own spiel of like, I have to listen to myself. Like I'm so bad at denying that. And when I do, it's so ugly that like I've gotten to this point where, and there's been times in my life where even if there's a conflict of interest, even if there's a dilemma of what I want versus like feeling inside, it's like, I got to listen to that voice. And I've made some like, a lot of those decisions have moved me across the country. A lot of those decisions have changed relationships for me, have changed a lot of outcomes for me. And there was a lot of things that I just kind of listened to my gut and was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. And the thing is, like, a lot of people think listening to your intuition is like checking in. Sometimes it is. That's not always required. But a lot of that shit really is just kind of like doing your natural thing, right? Like being yourself. Like, again, I've said this before, but a lot of people ask me, like, how do I best utilize my chart? And that really is being yourself. Like, don't question it. You know what I mean? It's like, when people like when people are like shooting reality TV or whatever, and you see like the weirdos who've never been around a camera and they act like all weird, it's like, don't do that. Just like be yourself. You know what I mean? That's the whole point of reality TV. Anyway, it's the same thing with your chart. It's like, if you really want to utilize your chart, stop questioning it. Just like, sorry, I think there's like knocking going on. I just started hearing it. Anyway, it's like, stop questioning yourself. Stop, overthinking it. Just be yourself. Just allow yourself to be yourself. And I know a lot of people struggle with that, but hey, we're like, at some, again, this is what I talked about in the last episode. At some point, you're going to have to accept yourself. Like, literally at some point. And you should, because guess what? You're here, and something that really helps me get away with stuff is if I have to deal with everyone else's bullshit, everyone's got to deal with my bullshit. Everyone's got space for, you have equal space as everybody else. But anyway, this intuition stuff, this taking a leap of faith stuff, it's so easy to cloud our judgment and cloud what we think and not be sure. And we get indecision, not sure what's the best. And I'm going to tell you right now, like, if you're feeling all of that stuff, if you're feeling that way, like, you've got to take a step back, and you've really got to say, like, for me, what's really helped me, and this isn't for everybody either, but this might help some people. Like, for me, I'm one of those people, like, I take it to an extreme, and I'm like, when I die, will I have wanted to make a different decision? I don't like to say regret, because regret is weird. It's like, well, you don't really know, and sometimes you just had to do what you have to do. You know what I mean? Like I talked about that in one of my weekly horoscopes. It's like people are like, oh my God, I don't want to have to do this thing because it's Mercury retrograde. And it's like, dude, you got to do what you got to do. Like, that's life. You know what I mean? You can't blame yourself for doing what you got to do and handling business. Like, I think there's more ridicule in not handling your shit than doing what you got to do to handle it. But it's really easy to cloud, I think, what that is. I think it's really easy, when you have stuff like, social media and just the society telling you who you should be or how you should think or how you should act and what's the best route for you. And maybe that's why that girl, did that fucking yoga studio thing. You know what I mean? And I can't blame her. I think everyone should live their dreams, right? But was that her dream? Was that actually her dream? Was that what she said? Was that what she naturally came up with? Is that what her heart wanted? You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people into astrology because astrology is a really helpful tool for finding things like purpose, for finding things like meaning, for knowing what you're going to do. But we've looked to it as if it's going to tell us, it's going to be like generating a label for you. And here you go. You are this label. And that's not how it works. It's not. We think, like, this is what's so annoying about, like, the Myers-Briggs stuff is that it's like it's just a label. Like, I know with astrology, people are like, oh, well, astrology is labeled too because you're just a zodiac sign. Well, it's like, well, that's only because it's sold and packaged that way. We know as astrologers that are doing much more complex work that it's much more dynamic than that. But, you got to get clear on what that voice is. You can't let everything, I don't want to say drown you out, but like, you got to ask yourself, what do you want? You know what I mean? Not what you're, and the thing is too, I got a lot of young people that, God, they struggle so much of like, oh, my parents want me to do this, but I want to do that. I'm like, your parents are going to die. Like, they could literally die tomorrow. And then are you still going to spend the rest of your life doing what your dead parents wanted to do? No. Like, you got to live your life. You got to do what's best for you. But you're not going to know what's best for you until you're clear about who you are, until what your voice says, until you're clear with that mind-gut intuition connection. Astrology can help people with that. Astrology can really help people go, oh, I can't, for example, if we're thinking of the spectrum of frequencies of like radio waves, it's like, well, I want to listen to a classic rock station, but these three stations are a little bit fuzzy, but this one comes in the best. Tune into that one. And that one's probably what shows up in your chart. That's what you have the most natural frequency and resonate with. You know what I mean? But we can't keep. There's no label that's going to really tell you what to do. You've got to decide what to do. Like, you got to think back. What I was really thinking about was in this climate crisis thing. Like, a lot of people really freaked out about it. And a lot of people don't want to have kids because of the climate stuff. And I thought, I've been thinking a lot because my whole generation doesn't want to have kids. And I'm back and forth with stuff. But I thought it was the people are like, oh, I don't want to have kids because of what they're going to be born into. And I've kind of was thinking, again, I've been trying to think much more like ancient thinking, like prehistoric thinking. And I'm thinking of the agricultural revolution, which like the agricultural revolution was really what a lot of scientists have theorized is because we kind of like after the Ice Age hunted a lot of animals out of extinction, and we needed more food. And it was easier to maintain or whatever. And it was kind of like, imagine being your ancient self. And I've heard this argument for people having kids of like, well, for as long as time has gone on, people have always been scared to have kids to put them into a shitty world, but that's the kids' problem to deal with. And I was like, that's a really interesting point, because if you think way back then, like, we got it great now and we think it's bad. We think the world's ending and we live like kings. Like, God, I love it's so funny being on Twitter and watching what Americans complain about. We just fucking have it so good. And, we live like kings and we think it's going to get worse. Don't get me wrong. Of course, it always can. And it probably will at but I think back, that didn't stop our ancestors. There was times where they were like, hey, we don't have food. We could all die. And they still did that shit. You know what I mean? I'm bringing I kind of forgot why I went into that tangent, but the thing I wanted to kind of bring about this was, okay, so it's like, you got to get clear on what that voice is. You got to get clear on like, what do you want, right? What does that actually mean? And that means for relationships, for, stop listening to like what other people tell you can have. Like, literally listen to yourself, be yourself, take all of that in. And for one, as an astrologer, if my job is to pretty much confirm your intuition, like, what's so hard about that is seeing people then immediately deny it, or at least wanting to deny it. You can't deny what you feel, right? That's kind of what's great about astrology, is it validates a lot of it. We don't want to deny any of that stuff. Now, why this intuition stuff is so important, and this is the kind of correlation I want to make here, is why do we know when to take action on things, right? Like, and how does astrology do that so well? To be like, oh, yeah, on this day, this is going to happen. And you're like, maybe. But then that day comes and it's like all the chemical processes are ready to go in order for that thing to happen. And so I'm bringing this up. I'm doing this whole podcast because it's like, your intuition's on some shit. It's, again, you don't have to force your birth chart. You don't have to force the natal promise. It's gonna happen. Where like the free will side of it comes is like, hey, if you knew like you were gonna win the lottery, would you buy like one lottery ticket or like 10 lottery tickets type thing? Or I wouldn't put it like that. It's like, you don't have to force anything to happen. It's gonna happen. You have control over a lot of the circumstances and maybe how much you get out of it. And I think that's kind of the cool part about knowing astrology, is being like having the foresight. But right? Like, you're going to know when it's time. We are all, animals just know shit. It's so funny that we think like, we don't question when animals just like, like when the like whales and the shit underwater just knows when to go to a different part of the earth. Other animals know when to fly on different parts of the earth. Other animals know when to do this. They know, like, they know. And we think that we're not animals. Which blows my mind. It's like, we're literally creatures of this earth. Like, you're going to know when is the right thing for you, when is the wrong thing for you. It's just, I think our minds are very powerful, and our minds are really influenced by a lot. And I think, when you got to understand why we're all in this astrology game, right? Like, we're trying to understand ourselves. We're trying to understand our reality. And we got to understand that, like, dude, our minds are so susceptible. Our minds are very, like, what's that saying? Like, the flesh is weak, but the spirit is strong, or whatever. Our minds and the way that we think, it's so easy to rationalize stuff. Like, it's it's so easy to rationalize things, to just make it okay. But you gotta check in. You really gotta check in and ask, is this mine? Is this what I'm feeling? And the whole reason I'm kind of talking about this is, I opened up this podcast with the idea of like, how did we not have like the foresight? Not how did we? I don't want to say that. But looking at 2020, it's like, how could we understand moments in the present better to understand like the future better, right? I look at it as like, you got to understand, you listening to your intuition right now is not about you gaining anything from your intuition right now. It is about you building up the building blocks for that to lead into something greater. Meaning, for example, the 2020 moment where that all happened, where, when you look back at something in hindsight and go, not necessarily could I have done something different, or could I have been more prepared, or I don't want to put it in any of those lights, but it's much more of a, were you listening to yourself, and how much of that was right and how much of that was wrong, and what did you do with that information? You know what I mean? And it's really easy. Humans were so funny. It's so easy to run into walls and to do repetitive behavior thinking it's going to change stuff, and it doesn't. Like I try to say all the time, none of the self-awareness shit is really hard. Like, it really is. People, like, especially people are like, oh, no one has common sense. It's like, dude, literally we have so many things that we have to think about. Like, it's amazing that we can think about all the things that we think about. But being able to, and, some people would call this mindfulness. Some people would call this, again, self-awareness. And some people would ask you to meditate on it, which, okay, I'm not going to deny the good parts of meditation. But again, there's other ways to like be mindful of how you feel and yourself without doing meditation, right? Like, something I really talk a lot about is like, or I've said this before on my horoscopes a lot, is idle hands are the devil's workshop. Fucking love that saying. It is so true. Like, when you're not doing anything, when you're not focused on a task at hand, like, tasks unfortunately give us some purpose, and if anything, that purpose is to distract us from getting into bad stuff, right? I want to rewind for a second. We're going to come back to that, but what I want to talk about here is the timing in life, and understanding when to take a leap of faith, and understanding when to move on, understanding that timing, right? For example, that girl, I know a lot of people that have done a lot of risky investments, for example, like that woman, and sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not successful. I think astrology can really help us show you where you're going to be successful and where your pitfalls are going to be, for number one. But two, when do you know to take that leap of faith? When do you know to make that decision? When do you know when the time is coming, right? Again, timing is so important with everything. You have to do everything at the right time. So how do you get to know when that timing is? How do you build up that self-awareness? And I truly, like, doing it without astrology, I think, would be really hard. As someone like me who, like, I'm a fucking planner. I plan and I plan even if the plans don't work. I make a plan anyway. That's just the way I was raised, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I know people that don't plan, and maybe they live happier, maybe they live worse, I don't know. But I know a lot of people like me that really like to plan and really think that we have control over our lives, even though we don't. And we're really trying, like, for me, I really try to, like, be into my intuition. And I think if I didn't have astrology and I tried to plan my life, like, there would be times where I'd feel very successful because I, felt like it did things at the right time. But then I think those pitfalls where I would have failed, not that I wouldn't have learned from that failure, but I think that would have been extremely challenging and also, like, really disheartening, unmotivating, right? Like, sometimes, we don't even know that we're doing things wrong, and that makes us, like, give up, like, we're not even, it's like, for example, I'm trying to think of, like, maybe I play a lot of Frisbee golf. So, like, maybe you're throwing the disc wrong, and, well, like, for example, I kind of realized this. So when you throw a disc like that, like, forearm, back arm, I think. Forearm, right? I think I'm saying that right. Takes a lot more energy, and you really, in my opinion, I can't throw it as far as versus when I throw it back arm and I kind of like chuck it a little bit. You get much more out of it. But like for me, I was like, of course I was like throwing it the harder way, and I was like, fuck, I suck. Why can't I do any of this? And then, no one, I was watching someone else throw it differently. I was like, oh, that's probably a better idea. That's probably something, I could do that will probably help me a little bit more. But, if you're doing something wrong, you don't know until you know, really. But this timing stuff, knowing when it's the best timing, I think for one, with astrology, understanding yourself and how you feel is the number one most important thing. You have to have that relationship with yourself. You have to know how you're going to react in a bad situation. You're going to have to know when you react to the good situation. You're going to know, you got to know yourself really well. Even if that self-awareness sucks. Like, I know, like, you got to know though. You got to know yourself. And then once you start seeing the astrology play out with it, then you'll start going, holy shit. Now I feel like I know it's like you can understand the waters in which your ship or your vessel is sailing on, is when you can really, because looking at the astrology and just understanding the astrology doesn't mean shit if you don't understand yourself, right? You know what I mean? You can get that we're going through a Saturn-Uranus square, and you could even understand what that means, I think, for the mundane world. But what does that mean for you? What does that mean for your life path? What does that mean for the decisions you have to make in the future? And again, one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is these intuitive moments where to make a decision, where yourself, is like, you got to be able to call that right then and there, because it's not about that moment, but it's about the future you. Where is this moment going to lead you in the future? What is that decision going to lead you into the future? What momentum will that decision create? Every decision has an equal and opposite, or not every decision, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And it's like physics and metaphysics just really fucking know how to work together sometimes. And that's so true. I mean, it's true with everything. You have to think, if you're going to make a decision right here, right now, what are the effects of it? I know a lot of people are like, duh, Cameron, I have anxiety. Of course I think about every little decision I make. And it's not necessarily like, oh, you need to think about every decision you make of whether it's wrong or right. You have to listen to yourself and say, do I believe in this or not? At the end of the day, you got to, like, it's not about right or wrong. I think right or wrong is a weird dichotomy for everything, because not everything is right or wrong. Everything is, because I mean, anything can be kind of justified. Anything can really be looked at as right or wrong, really from the perspective. Like I love that meme of like I forgot the guy's name, where it's like the happy face and then the frowny face. And it's like, oh, me watching the gazelle documentary, or watching the lion eat the gazelle in the lion documentary, versus me watching watching the lion eat the gazelle in the gazelle documentary. It's like literally everything is perspective, right? So we can't sit here and say, did you make the wrong decision? Did you make the right decision, right? We've got to cut that shit out. And especially too, I'm bringing a lot of this stuff up, is the more and more as we, to kill purpose out of people's lives, give people nothing to work with, and while we become gray blobs like that Very Odd Parents episode, like, we've got to start asking these much more nuanced questions, these much more complex questions. Whether it's not, did you make the right or wrong decision? Did you make the decision that you were okay with? That, even if it, like, I look back, there was a decision I had to make. This is the decision, one of many decisions that completely altered my life. One of those was actually when I moved to Vegas the first time. I had just turned 18. I was already living, me and my sister, we got kicked out at the same time, so we lived together. I was bathing dogs. I've done a lot of jobs. And there was like some friends from high school from hers that we partied with, and they were like, yeah, like Vegas is super cheap. I think I had like the dude that the girl was dating was like, I can get you an HVAC job. And I was going to do like HVAC or some shit like that. And they were like, yeah, you should just move out here because it's cheap. And me and my sister were like, because we lived in like California at the time, we were like, fuck it. We didn't, and it was crazy because me and my sister were very, I don't want to say intuitive, but we're on that consciousness shit. You know what I mean? Like we've kind of had to. I think when you live a certain way, you kind of have to be on a certain like spectrum of wavelength of thought of like, how do I better myself? And we've been on that for a minute. And so we didn't really, we didn't think about this too deep. We were like 18 and like 21. But we were like, fuck it, let's just do it. And it was like, that decision was very scary. I left everything I knew. We were doing shit all on our own. If I hadn't made that decision, like, I have no idea where I would be. If I hadn't made the decision to, also one of the biggest decisions I ever made in my life was when I left Vegas and moved to Denver for the first time, which that completely altered my life for the best. But that was a hard decision. I had to quit my job that I loved. I was working at the Hard Rock on the Strip, loved my coworkers. I'd never been like accepted by people that were so, warm and lovely. And I was loving my job, but at the same time, like I wasn't making enough money. I wasn't happy. And I ended up quitting my job, breaking up with like my girlfriend. I moved to Denver, like very last minute. And it's just like, those decisions were so hard to make in that moment. Me quitting my job, and I just like got another job, just got my first apartment by myself. I ended so many things, and it was so hard to make those decisions, but I fucking knew in my heart it was the right one. And that kind of led me on my path. If I didn't make that decision, I can legitimately say if I did not make that decision to move to Denver, I would never be an astrologer. Like for sure. Or at least if I did, it wouldn't have happened till a lot later. But also, I didn't know astrology back then. Like when you look back at the timing, you're like, oh yeah. Like if I would have known what I know now, I'd have been like, yeah, I could totally see how all of those events would have happened. But at that time, all I had was my intuition. All I had was like my gut feeling of like, was this the right move? Was this not the right move? And the thing is, the astrology lined up with that. So it's kind of like, sure, listen to the astrology. Yeah, check in because all it's going to do is confirm or deny that. But like, check in with yourself. You know what I mean? You're steering the ship. The planets aren't steering I don't want to say the planets aren't steering the ship. I think our solar system is much more advanced and complex and our relationship and the effects it has on us is much more complex than we give it credit for. So I don't want to say the planets don't affect you, but I do want to say that at least in this moment, as in our understanding of our world, you have a lot of control over the direction you steer in. I made that comment on the last episode of like literally like we're all on a ship and you can kind of steer that ship wherever. But I think a lot of this now is understanding how to like again, and this is why I kind of opened this up with making a prediction in hindsight. You know what I mean? Think of this moment right now and this is something I've been and I don't want to say let me open up real quick because I've been very open in this whole show. I've been talking about myself, but for me right now, and I've been telling everybody this free astrology advice is like 2021 is a work year. It is not a launching things year. It is not a time where like this is like put in the work. If you got a plan, put that plan into action right now. The fruit of your labor is gonna come out in 2022. And this is the reason I've been thinking so much about this is like there's some awesome fucking transits in 2022 that are, and this is the thing, regardless of your role, regardless of your awareness that there's going to be great things that happen in 2022, they're going to happen to you anyway. So like it will it's going to happen anyway, right? So ask yourself, now that you're kind of aware, what cool astrology things are happening in the future, it's like, what can you do right now to get the most out of that? If you know something's going to happen, can you plan for it? What can you do to set yourself up for the best way for it? And I think a lot of that is listening to your intuition, listening to yourself. I talked a lot about that self-awareness stuff on the last episode. But I think a lot of this is like, do you have like that girl? I think about that girl who took out, I can't imagine being an adult and taking out a business loan on something that you have no, like, I can't even fathom that idea, but I try to be a little bit more fiscally responsible. But I can't fathom that idea, and what scary feeling that must have felt like, especially like, she lost it all. And I'm sure there's a lot of people I've had some clients who've lost it all too. I'm sure, and I'm not saying like you guys, maybe had the wrong intuition, maybe at the right time it was the right gut feeling, but you can't tell me that somewhere along that path there maybe wasn't a, oh, maybe I should change things. Not to say it, a lot of people, shit happens, right? All I try to tell people is like, be aware of what you're in control of, and you're really only in control of yourself. So be aware of yourself, tap in, tune in, turn on. And the reason that's important is because, like what you do right now is, sounds like crazy, I know, but what you do right now affects you in the future. And with the astrology too, like this is something I just feel like we don't give it enough credit for when it comes to like, for example, like the Saturn Pluto opposition in 2001. That was 9/11. Again, how many people were really like, being like, oh, this will usher in the surveillance state, and this will usher in, a 20-year endless war that will just, keep the military industrial complex going. Like not a lot of, and then like what were the effects on like the troops after that, right? And the effects on society after that. And I think we have to just be thinking of these transits in much more of like, sure, right now, for example, and this is why I'm bringing this up, Jupiter's in Pisces at this moment. And like I said, I've been on this Jupiter and Pisces kick, and like I feel like, I don't want to say, I don't even know who I feel like right now. With Jupiter and Pisces, take this moment in. This is a sneak preview of 2022. I know it feels weird right now. It's not going to stay like this. It's not going to be like this. We just had Jupiter fly through Aquarius. Jupiter's going to go back through Aquarius and say, what was going on here? What did you learn here? Because that's the thing. The thing is about Jupiter's, and the reason for the Jupiter transit's really important when it comes to learning things, right? Same thing with Saturn, and they're both in Aquarius. But as Jupiter's into Pisces, it's like, there's so much stuff that's happening next year. There's so much stuff that's happening the year after, or I should say 2022. Check in right now and say, what can you do right now that's good? And, this is pretty much the difference between like short-term satisfaction, instant gratification, and, long-term satisfaction. It's like, what can you do right now to really benefit out of this next, from a year from now? What, it's kind of like, how do I put this? If there's going to be a crazy lightning storm with a volcano eruption, with tornadoes, if you know it's going to happen on a certain day, wouldn't you like, and you were a photographer, wouldn't you like maybe show up maybe a little bit early on that day with like all of your camera gear ready? Just like, you know what I mean? It's something I also preach a lot about. I haven't actually talked about this in a while, and I want to talk a little bit more about it, is being at the right place at the right time. That's really all, in my opinion, it really takes to get life going for you, is just like understanding to be at the right place at the right time. And all that really is, in my opinion, is listening to yourself, because that's what astrology is tracking here. And that's the big thing I wanted to like really make a connection with, is like, if all we're doing as astrologers is really confirming a lot of people's intuition, it's like, maybe we need to get people more involved with their relationship with themselves. And this is the other thing too, like that, and this is also why I kind of talk about, like, that involves like healthy living in so many other ways. Like, you got to be in tune with your body. You got to be in tune with your environment. You got to be in tune with all of this shit, right? And it's a journey, man. All of this shit is a journey. But what I try to say is with astrology, this is why astrology is such a powerful tool, is that like it really is like, I can't imagine going into this world. Like, astrology is a map. Like, it truly is. Here's a map of the territory you're going to work with. Here's your relationship to it. Here's where you are. Go. You know what I mean? And we can lean on this map, and this map can tell us more than I think we also, for one, give it credit for. But I think the other thing, though, is too with, I think when it comes down to this, taking leaps of faith, changing your life. I know a lot of people, because of the pandemic, they want to, a lot of people want to change their careers, start their own business, do their own thing. I'm 100% of someone that says, yes, you should. But I'm also going to kind of echo what this Cal Newport guy says. And he says, why don't you do what you're already like, not, I don't want to say good at, but what you already have invested. And this is kind of why I brought this up too, is your chart. Like I'm a Leo, right? What service does it do for other people for me to not be myself? And that is to be, like I'm a passionate person. For me to dim my passion, what does that mean? You know what I mean? For other people, I've got to be what I'm good at. I've got to be what I naturally am. You know what I mean? That girl who did that yoga business, she didn't even have yoga training. She wasn't even a yoga teacher. And that's okay. And it's okay to fuck up and be wrong. What's so important though is that fucking up sucks. And so instead of fucking up, learn from other people's mistakes. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But the only one that's going to tell that is you. So many people in this world, it's like, it's so rare when someone's going to tell you something's not for you. Like no one's going to tell you no. Not in this society. You got to listen to yourself and go, what is the best decision for me and my feelings? And that's sometimes making, and that's not always making a decision. Sometimes that's waiting to make a decision. Sometimes that's waiting to make a call. But, trying to understand, I think, things in hindsight. I think trying to understanding, trying to trust yourself, trying to, like a big reason I'm kind of bringing up this episode is for a lot of people want to live their destiny. They want to live their purpose. They want to live their meaning, right? Something that I'm going to talk about in a future episode with a buddy of mine, a good astrologer, Drew. I talk about him a lot. We had this conversation not that long ago about purpose. And I'm going to have him on the podcast. We're going to actually talk about this. But this kind of idea is when it comes to purpose, that's up to you. That's not up to, and that's not even up to you actually. It's up to really shit that's out of your control, out of your power. We kind of talked a little bit about that too with, the last episode. But it's just so rather than trying to not listen to I don't want to say not listen to yourself. I talked about this too before of taking the path of least resistance. But really though, that path of least resistance is just listening to yourself. What the astrology is really saying is to listen to yourself. What the planets are telling you to do is to trust your intuition and say that you are going to know what's best for you in that moment, as long as you know to trust yourself more than anyone else. I said in a horoscope not that long ago that, unfortunately, you're pretty much, you're born and you die alone. No one else is responsible for your quality of life other than you, which for some people sucks. For other people can maybe do some more, but you have to take control in your hands where you can. And I think the best way to take control into your own hands is take the power into your own hands is also to understand what power you have. And that's really to understand yourself, trusting your gut, trusting your intuition. Understanding this astrology stuff, all this is just the training wheels to understanding yourself and understanding the way that you interact in your environment. This is the beauty about reading charts for people is that again, on this, I have an intake form. Of course, I want to get to know you and the people that I work with, but you don't have to. I can read the chart and and you can fill in the rest for yourself, right? With astrology, you have the astrologer and what they say, and they really set everything up, and then you fill in the blanks for yourself, right? So then you start to go, wow, now I start to see how these planets can describe my circumstances and my relationship to my reality, right? The planets are there as a guide. You are your own vessel. You, again, are your own ship. The stars can guide you, but the stars cannot get you there, right? You've got to be the one that pushes it. You've got to be the one that steers the boat, really. And again, think back to how we navigated the seas and the stars literally helped us navigate this earth. Of course, they can help us navigate our internal lives. It's the sense of the stars aren't going to pull you over there. you've got to know that the stuff, you got to read the signs. Something I've talked about this a few times on my weekly horoscope, but this is a really impactful lesson for me that truly changed my life. And this is something that I read at my dad's eulogy. But one of the craziest things he ever did that I think I got the most out of, metaphysically, by the way, like not even in the real world, like metaphysically, spiritually speaking, this transformed how I saw things. We were out in Arizona, we were going somewhere, and he just pulls over in the middle of the desert and he tosses me a map. This is before iPhones. Like, this was like I forgot the Parker Hill or whatever map. And he goes, "Hey, we're lost. Figure out where we're going." And I'm like, I don't know, like 10. I'm like, fuck, I don't know. I'm like looking at this map like shit. I've never paid attention. And pretty much I was forced to learn how to read a map there. But something that I was always confused about, I'm like, how am I supposed to know where we're at? Like, I'm like, I can see the map, duh, but how do I know where we're at? And he was like, read the signs. He's like, in every city, there's literally a sign for everything. If you just read the signs, you will get to your destination. And holy fuck, that blew my mind. Because if you actually drive, I know there's a lot of people that have like weird insecurity about driving. Like, they have to have their map. It's like, literally, you don't have to have the map. Like, if you just read the signs, you can get to your destination quite easily. The signs are all provided for you there. And think about that. Think about the metaphysical terms of that. Just read the signs. They're there. You just gotta pay attention to them. How often are you on the freeway or driving actually reading every road sign? Reading what everything has to say? I mean, I do, but I'm just like programmed that way. I say this to say, like, reading the signs, seeing that's the same thing as tapping into your intuition. That's the same thing as seeing the planets and going, I think that's what this means for me. Oh, this exit is in a half mile. Maybe I should get in the right lane. I don't know. Maybe that's just my thinking. But the reason I'm doing this whole episode is like, read the signs, listen to yourself, and you will get to your destination. The chart is that roadmap. The chart is those signs. The chart is the destination, and it is the journey. However, you have to be the one that goes, oh, there's my exit. Let me get in the right lane, because the stars are not going to do that for you. You can completely miss your exit. And you can keep going, and then you got to turn around, and then you don't know where you're going, and then you get anxiety, and then you're lost. And just read the signs. If you know how to read the signs, you will get to your destination. I swear to God, it's like the most mind-blowing thing. And I would challenge you too, when you're out driving, especially if you live in like an inner city, like a I don't want to say metropolis. Metropolis is such a weird word. But like, literally try to drive without the map. Just read the signs, and you'll be blown away with how much information is actually there for you. And you'll go, wow, I never thought of it this way. And then think about that, like, in terms for your life. Like, how many times in your life it was like big red flag, hello, waving it, and then you ignored that. You didn't, or how many times has a big red flag waved in your face, and then it wasn't until way later on you go, holy fuck, I didn't even see that red flag. It was right there the whole time. Just like when you're driving down the road and you see the signs, you're like, I didn't even see that sign right there. And there's like, like in fucking Denver, or like in most cities, it's like street sweeping every 2 to 3 p.m. on every Wednesday after a full moon. You're like, what? And you have to remember that, but you don't even fucking read the sign, and then you get a fucking ticket. And it's just like, but if you read the sign, you would know the sign's complicated, but that's a different example. What I'm trying to say here, and where I really want to end off, is just, man, that self-awareness shit that I talked about last week. Tapping in, tuning in, turning on. Look around you. Read the signs. What does it say? What are you feeling? Just like it says, and this is, again, to bring this back into that hindsight idea. When you're on the freeway, it says, oh, one exit, half mile. Another exit, a mile. Another exit in 2 miles. The decisions you make then will affect whether or not you get to your destination. So if you're driving, and by the way, driving is one of the greatest analogies. It's just filled with stories to analogize life with. But if you're driving in the fast lane, your exit's in a half mile. You got to do the math and say, okay, I got to get over there. You can go, oh, well, let's say 2 miles. Let's say, oh, well, you go, oh, I got enough time. I can stay here. Let me see if I can pass this guy. Well, if you think that way, you might miss your exit, right? So it's those moments that you make in this. That's what's cool about driving too, because what's cool about driving is that you can't just make instantaneous like decisions. Like that's how you get in accidents, right? Like you have to think of physics, you have to think of timing, you have to think of how everyone else is going to play around, and what their actions and decisions are going to do. But it's really like if you know your exit soon, your destiny, your purpose is somewhere around here, and you're on the freeway. Listen to the signs. Stop looking at your fucking phone for all the answers. Turn it off. Look at the freeway signs, focus in, look around you and go, where is my exit? Where are you going? You know what I mean? And for some people, you don't have to, explore the whole damn city. Get off at every exit if you want to. But what I'm just trying to get here is just read the signs, wake up, pay attention to it. Same thing with the astrology. It's like the astrology is simply just the sign that shows you go this way. Did my question, it's like kind of like the three kings that found Jesus. It's like, I want to know, did they know Jesus would be there, or were they just like, let's go that way? I don't know the answer. But anyway, look, astrology and life is absolutely crazy. I think that what really a lot of astrology can be, of course, astrology can be a lot of things, but what it can really be is this great, facilitator of finding a way, finding that purpose. If you were driving on the freeway looking for the signs, you wouldn't know to look at the signs if, like you didn't have like a map or something to tell you about that, right? I'm here to tell you, look at the signs, learn how to read a map, and I think you'll get to your destination just fine. Don't open a yoga studio because Instagram told you to open a yoga studio. Don't quit everything that you've ever built up to do something that you're not even sure about. Do the things that you are sure about. Do the things that you have signs for. You know what I mean? For one, on a personal note too, and just end with this, is like, I don't even feel like for me, I've had this battle with astrology because I'm a musician. I've always wanted to do music, right? Which I'm still trying to do, and I am doing, but astrology has been one of these things I'm like, man, it's just like sign after sign has been like astrology drive, astrology court, here you go, like here you're in astrology land, and maybe I'm supposed to be here, maybe I'm supposed to get off at these exits, and I've done that and it's worked really well for me. You know what I mean? And that's also, it's funny when you look at my chart, there's a lot of indicators of being an astrologer. So it's just one of those things where you go, I think and trust me, if there's so many times in my life that I could have just denied being an astrologer and been like, nah, that's not for me. It wasn't even my idea to be an astrologer. I had a group of friends pretty much dare me to do it because I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know what my purpose is. And then people were like, well, you're like, you don't ever shut up about astrology. They're like, have you ever thought about maybe being an astrologer? And I was like, no. And I didn't kind of take it seriously, but it was, long story short, it was kind of a dare. But here I am. I'm thankful for that decision. But I also think too, if I would have resisted, and I had a lot of signs, right? If I would have resisted that, who knows what I would have been doing by now? I'm so happy doing this. I'm so grateful that I can do this too. And I feel really good about doing this. I feel, I hate to say it, but I feel like I'm serving a purpose here, and that every human should feel like they are serving a purpose. Like I feel like that's an inherent thing that you should get out of life. But anyway, we got to wrap this up. I want you guys to walk away from this episode kind of going, hey, what's more obvious? Like, again, read that book, So Good They Can't Ignore It. Because what I love how he talks about, I love Cal Newport as an author. He's just so funny. But he really talks about, it's really not rocket science. He's like if you're, maybe it's not what you want to do forever, and that's okay, because nothing's forever. But like, do what you're good at, do what the signs say, go in the direction that you're going, and find a way to leverage yourself there. It's really that simple. And, with this Mercury retrograde, this is something I've just been thinking so much about, is like, it really can be so much more simple. It really can be so much more easier than you might think. It's really easy to overconfuse things, but just sometimes you just need to shut up. And just sometimes you need to turn your brain off. And sometimes you need to stop thinking about things. And sometimes you just need to, turn off the phone, turn off Waze, turn off the radio, and just look around. You know what I mean? With Jupiter and Pisces, again, I know I talked really a lot. I said a lot of similar talking points as the last episode. But hey, we got a future that we're going into, are you ready for it? Or are you going to, I don't want you guys to be into astrology and not get something out of it. You know what I mean? I don't want you guys to be into this and just watch things go by and go, oh, I could have done something there. I could have done something there. Use this shit. Hello. You know what I mean? It's like if you knew exactly how the weather was, if let's say, because most of my listeners are women too, so this will be a funny example. Let's say you knew exactly how the weather was going to be for every day for the rest of the year, and you knew, let's say you wanted to get married on a specific day, and you knew that day was going to rain. It's why would you, if you knew that day was going to be rainy or sunny, would that change your decision on whether to get married on that day or have an outside or an inside wedding? You know what I mean? With astrology, it's you're going to know when the rainy days are, and you're going to know, you're going to know when the sunny days are. And again, this is why I'm not the big spiritual person in astrology. I think with my horoscopes, I'm much more literal and hey, this is going to be a shit day. This is going to be a good day, because that's, it's going to be a rainy day. It's going to be a sunny day. Whether some people like rainy days, some people like sunny days, that's up to you to decide. However, though, I think you should get the most out of it. And it's stop trying to, if you really want to do some gardening, but you keep going out on a rainy day, maybe you should look up the weather and wait for a sunny day to do it. You know what I mean? Maybe you should also just read the signs. There's nothing, most of the time we could predict the weather ourselves just by going outside and looking at the clouds. But anyway, thank you again for being here. If you want to support the show, head over to my Patreon, patreon.com/KenWhiteAstro. Commercial free, early release. I have some more extra benefits that are coming in the next couple of weeks for my patrons too. Thank you to the patrons that put this on, or the patrons that put this on and that support this episode. Thank them in the comments below if you can. Yeah. And with that being said, I guess I will be seeing you guys next time.